I've been thinking, careful Neil, of late about what this show actually is. Nothing too deep, you understand, only in terms of how you might describe it. The elevator pitch in some ways, what it does, who it's for, why somebody might gift me the privilege of listening to it when there are so many other fantastic podcasts around. And you know, one slightly amusing, perhaps metaphorical description occurred to me as I rode the 10:43 Liverpool Lime Street to London Euston train on Wednesday morning, having spent a few days that you're about to hear about in the wonderful, wonderful city of Liverpool. There's irony, eh? Little old me practically riding a pinstriped express. Though at 10:43 in the morning, not so many people with faces pressed up against the window, unable to breathe for shared fear of norovirus. But as I sped through the countryside, sat in carriage B, seat 9 on the aisle, it was the other passengers who helped me understand what this podcast is all about. Come with me for a moment on this train journey before I tell you about where we're walking today. We're on this train. Cue train interior carriage sounds, please. Behind me, so you need to use your imagination now, about 2 seats back, sits a Glaswegian. He's in his 50s, late 50s, maybe 60s. Strong, invested accent, equally a resonance that suggests that he's at some stage, maybe even now he does still, smoke 50 a day. It's that razor blade's depth, as people in the voiceover industry describe it. And he's taking call after call after telephone call after call after call. Now, my bestie in Scotland, or one of my besties, Lynn of the Fraser clan, on the Black Isle, would right now be casting a look across at him, I'm sure, if we were sat together on that train. I don't know his name, but I've learned a lot else about him. I know he's in construction. I even know he grew up in Uddingston, hence me guessing Glasgow. And I know he's, quote, pissed off by his customers because they're all f***ing incompetent, close quotes said loudly. I know he was out on the lash the night previous with some mates and had a great time, but hated the hotel. I know he's slightly hungover because it's the opening gambit of each and every conversation. I know he's going to a funeral on Monday, and amusingly, his ultra and unnecessarily loud ringtone is, and this is where I know Lynn of the Fraser clan would be looking across at him, his ultra and unnecessarily loud ringtone is, and I don't mean to practice any form of typecast profiling when I share that his ringtone is a piper belting out Scotland the Brave. Hark when the night is falling, hear the pipes are calling, loudly and proudly calling down through the glen. And in this case, that glen being carriage B. Now, across the way in front by about seat and a half, almost diagonally, in the aisle seat is a man also in his 50s, I think, ish. And he's got nice suit, nice shoes, and he's playing a game. And it's the game our kids played on their mobiles. It's where you run some sort of kitchen and you tap and you swipe and you feed your customers with burgers. And anyway, it's kind of mismatching. I'm looking at him and I'm looking at this game that is feverishly playing, and he's been on it for ages. And I know it's the one our kids played because it's not the sound off, and all I can hear is the theme tune from this particular game that I used to hear from the back seat when the kids played it for long trips away on holiday. It's omnipresent, even though it's not that loud. And then to my right, that way, there we go, 90 degrees, you've got it, a younger woman is snoring, which is not entirely surprising, because if it weren't for the fact that I was noting all this down to recount to you, I'd probably have been asleep as well, because we're on this Avanti train line's pendolino, and it leans and it weaves into each turn, and it's even thinking about it, it's sort of making me nod off. Anyway, she's got a rhythmic breathing. It's sort of a light snore, really. It's not a heavy snore. It's not the sort of one that you earn with age. So it's not a big snore, but it's a sort of reassuring, calm purr, which in itself is not disturbing. But her phone is. And she seems able to easily slumber through her ultra-loud text messages. Somebody clearly is trying to contact her because is happening over and over and over. And so with this modern day jungle cacophony of communication tech invading my desire just to gently enjoy 2.5 to 3 hours of peace, it struck me what this podcast might be, or what I hope it is anyway. This, my fellow other listener with a camera, this is the quiet carriage of photography podcasts. It neither shouts nor gets too excited, save perhaps the intro, which meanders a little bit closer to pipes and glens. We may not be whispering, but it's a gentle walk. Me with my camera and the letters that you send in, you with your camera, taking some pictures of where we walk each week. And this week is no exception, because we're walking in Liverpool together, joined in person by Mali Davies, who is going to guide us past symbols of the fifth largest city, which is where he works. Now, I will say this. We walked for about an hour and a half, possibly 2, just making photographs in low light. Bit of a challenge at times as well, as you'll hear. And this is not a guided tour of the place. And I think I shall return to do that at some stage next year, because we barely touch the edges in terms of history. Although I did think my studio self could pop up here and there, peppering, or if you like, stand by, Sergeant peppering you with oddments of history about the route we took. Pictures will be on the show page. It's a street walk. We're urban walking for most of this show. So it's a good week for Valérie Jardin to also join us with street photography tips later on in Visual Stories.
Today on the Photowalk.
It's amazing people look at people, not the camera.
Yeah.
When you put the camera to your face, then you've combined both and they've got you.
Well, if you have a silhouette, low angle will work better.
Yes, yeah.
Because your silhouette will stand out more in the bright spot.
I vibrate. I can't sit still. Things are always happening and changing in my mind, and I keep interested that way.
And then the wind catches his coat, and it's that gesture that makes that photograph.
And he really knew all about this Japanese culture of forever improving. But then I also started thinking about forever changing to improve. So even though something might not work, not to just leave it, but look at how can you do something that improves it.
Some moments to come from today's photo walk in Liverpool, passing the Cavern, the famous Liver building, and through the docks to the, infamous bombed-out church. And before I give you a flavour of today's mailbag, which we also have, thank you to our extra milers and mpb.com who sponsor this show and keep us here week on week. mpb.com, they are a website where you can safely buy, sell and trade quality used photo and video gear online. And you become part of a circular economy by doing this. And if you're buying, you get peace of mind. There's a 6-month guarantee. If you are trading or selling, well, they'll send a courier, MPB will, to pick up your kit on a day you specify. It arrives back at their warehouse. They check it to make sure it's been graded properly. And then you get paid directly into your bank account quickly. mpb.com is an easy-to-use website. Very easy. I can use it, you can use it. And it's helping photographers to buy quality used gear or sell kit that you no longer need to free up cash and give others a chance to make their stories. Go to mpb.com and I'll have a link on today's show page. On the show today then, from the mailbag anyway, in between our walk around Liverpool, we start with the question of why? A really powerful one at that, I think. And then the most incredible story that will, it's absolutely going to captivate you, I promise you. If you're anything like me, and I think you are when it comes to emotion, honestly, this is the kind of letter and powerful story which has me thinking you completely get the idea of this quiet carriage. And then also a letter on how photography is perhaps the best way to get out and meet people. And of course, atop that, I'm walking around Liverpool with a very good friend of ours now. Shall we walk? Checklist out. Coffee, check. Garibaldi's, check. Walking shoes for an urban stroll, check. Let's walk.
This is a wonderful time of the year for really painting our own visual story, or rather audible visual story, with the sounds of these leaves underfoot, heading deeper toward winter. A note beside, as they say, starting today's walk, the letters are still featuring in the show, as you heard, your mails into the programme. And I'd initially taken them to Liverpool to read from the street the day after my walk with Mali. But life earlier on this week had other plans, as extra milers will find out on the Patreon channel Extra Mile Show, which will be number 64. Very good number for this week. Extremely apposite. Because, come on, why is 64 a good number when you think of the Beatles? Come on, fingers on buzzers. My other listener just is not getting this. Come on. Yes, you've got it. But my other listener hasn't. 64, When I'm 64, song by... Oh. Somebody tell them the Beatles. I know you knew that. It's my other listener. They're still back along the path, tying their shoelaces when it comes to keeping up with the conversation. Are you joining us? So the letters, there's only a few today. I walked with them. That's what I'm doing now when I return to Berkshireville. So my perfectly laid plans featured no mice and men in the end. I took an extra photo walk to record them. Out of the mailbag this week, we are starting with Richard Olroyd. You're not by any way, Richard. This is a long shot, but I'll ask anyway. Related to Eleanor Oldroyd, the sports broadcaster I worked with for about a minute during my early years in the radio world. I mean, I know there's other Oldroyds, I'm aware of that, but in my life, I've only ever met two. Eleanor and you. Anyway, before we start to try and shoehorn Eleanor into another Liverpool link, Neil, says Richard, don't hide behind the couch, but thank you for your podcast. Not only do you introduce us to amazing photographers, but you have, this is where I should hide behind a sofa, an amazing presentation style. Thank you, Richard. It's probably to do with your BBC training. You see, you do know Eleanor, huh? She's told you about the training. You made me smile, says Richard, when you said the photo walk will be in Liverpool land and some of it will be in the dark, and you wondered how you'd be able to read the letters that me and your other listener have sent in. It may surprise you to hear, but electricity and street lamps have now made it this far north. Richard, you're right. I saw them with my own eyes. And I fear I slipped into southern thinking that the rest of the country is still running on power made by shire horses. Dangerous thinking. But you're right. Actually, you also have Uber and London-priced beer as well. That's something I noticed. Anyhow, that said, says Richard, as for my why... you've got a why. Right, what have we got? I am a massive overthinker. And I'll play a scenario in my head over and over again where I say different things and consider the other person's response. This obviously is not healthy, so I need something to 100% occupy my mind to break this pattern. And for me, one of those things is photography. I shoot with my trusty Pixel 7 Pro smartphone, which suits me as I love a challenge and thrive on problem solving. So this also helps occupy my brain as I try to work out how to get the shot the way I want. I'm not really a people person, says Richard, as I can't guarantee what my mood will be on any given day. I guess I'm somewhere on the bipolar spectrum. Those who know me well certainly know how to react to me when I'm on a down and make the most of it when I'm on my up. I need a reason to push me out the door to shoot. So this may be why 90% of the images I take are for stock photography sites, and others end up on Google Maps as I'm a member of the local guides program. Snap, Richard. I have just started to really invest some time in that myself. We were talking about that on the Extra Mile. And actually, the next Zoom show really does delve in deep to that. But in a nutshell, my why is to stop me from overthinking and occupy my brain with something positive. Thanks for your show, and please don't stop walking. Richard, it is not my plan to. There's a thumping great helicopter coming our way. Can you hear that? Is it? Those, we talked about it last week, those Chinooks though, then they sort of slightly deviate and you don't hear them at all. It's really odd. So no, Richard, it's not my intention to. I rather enjoy the company of you and my other listener, and thank you sincerely for all the honesty within your letter. The why has really become a sub-theme of the show this year, has it not? It was kind of always there, but I feel I've really doubled down on it this year. People's whys and how photography and walking is this potent force for mental health. I took the train, as you heard just a moment ago, to Liverpool instead of car. Car was pleased for the break, and in the 7 or 8 hours of train and platform waiting times, I've actually finished my version of why. It's I've not finished the entire book, but I finished the main chapter. And the main chapter, I've sort of, it's a bit like doing dessert, Richard, before the main course. I've done the bit after it mainly, but the start, the opening chapter was the really tricky bit. And having all that time on the train was fabulous. And funnily enough, I didn't really recognise what my why was. And what I mean by that is that what came out, what I wrote about in those considered hours where I really thought about it, was slightly different to the why that I've always considered I have. And that was interesting. But that's the book coming out. Another plug for the book. We're right on deadline, it would seem. I think. Anyway, it's probably time, as that helicopter heads towards me, to jump to Liverpool by the magic, the power of podcasting, and start to talk with Mali and make some steps across the magnificent 5th largest city in the UK. I told you, didn't I, that this week the Photowalk is taking me, well, somewhat outside my comfort zone, actually, because usually I like to place myself somewhere in the countryside where there's not too many people. I might meet the odd dog walker here and there, but really not that many people. And I quite like it because I get peace and quiet, and talking into my microphone, nobody gives me a strange look. But today I've decided to, this week we've decided to, and I say we because you'll meet him in a moment, go on an urban photo walk in the dark. So I'm not quite sure what my photography is going to look like because I've not really sketchbooked that much in the dark before. So this is an evening of photo walking and photographing in the dark, and look who's joined me. If you can see him in the dark, it's Mali.
All you can see is my teeth, like a BG. And we're looking up at some livers.
Yes, now, let me explain this. So we are doing a bit of a tour around Liverpool and making our photographs, our sketchbooks. In between, I will come back and read the letters because the mailbag's important. So we have a mailbag this week as well. But we're going in search, loosely that is, of liver birds. Now, I'm going to cross back to my studio soft just for a second because I want you to know the story of the liver bird.
Well now, the liverbird is a mythical creature adopted as the symbol of Liverpool. It's on the city's arms, it's painted everywhere, it's chiselled onto the sides of buildings. You'll find statues. It appears in stained glass windows. It's normally represented as a cormorant, although a mythical kind of cormorant. The bird is associated very clearly with Liverpool FC, but did you know, I did not know this until I read it, the first club to use it as a symbol was actually the team who wear blue in the same town. Yes, Everton. It was replaced in the 1930s with the Everton Lock-Up, another Liverpudlian icon. Some fans think it should be back on the blue shirt because it rightfully belongs to both clubs. The two most famous statues, or liverbirds, stand atop the building we're about to talk about more, but whilst we do chat about it, think about this. Local legend holds that the birds on the building face away from each other, because if they were to see each other and think, hello, and then, well, fly away, the city would cease to exist. Also, Wiki told me that they're chained down, which they are, because if they were to fly away, the River Mersey would burst its banks and it would flood the entire city. Tell me those two theories are not catastrophizing. There was a BBC comedy very much of its time in the 60s and 70s called The Liverbirds, and there was an all-female rock group from Liverpool called The Liverbirds. They moved to Hamburg in 1964, 2 years after the Beatles played 250 concerts there. The Liverbirds became billed as Die weiblichen Beatles, the female Beatles. So there we go, Liverbird information from the studio. Now go make some pictures.
And so it doesn't get much more liverbird than the first two. I can only see one of the two from where I am at the moment, but it's the photograph you see really that probably depicts the most famous liverbirds of them all, isn't it?
Oh yes, most definitely. With the liverbird building, synonymous, isn't it, with Liverpool? And I've had to refer to my notes here because even though I don't live that far away from here, my little one reminds me often, that's my little girl, it's Bertie and Bella. Now they're the special ones that we've got in front of us on the liverbird building, but I get dead excited. I've been working on this project, I've still got to finish it.
Is this your secret project?
It's my secret project.
Well, you can't say too much about it.
I can, because it's just a YouTube video.
Oh, really?
So it's no biggie.
Is this a grand reveal of a YouTube video that's coming up?
Well, there's 3 livers, sculpted livers, and there's one behind us here on the Liverpool Commerce buildings that's unnamed, unknown. I'm sure there's many a Scouser out there who'll tell me the name of this, but I don't know it right now because it's very unknown indeed. And it's on the Commerce building and lit up with one broken wing. And I wanted to bring Neil to see this because all the glory goes to the liverbird buildings, but this is quite exciting to see this, and then hopefully if our legs can take us, we're going to go and find a 4th. In terms of, there's hundreds in the city, these 4 are quite unique.
So we've got 1, 2 and 3 in one.
In one go.
Right, off to the pub then. But we've walked past and we are going to visit it later on, and I'll make some photographs. I'm assuming I'm allowed to when we get inside. But we went past the famous Cavern Club. And they charge you £5 to get in these days. £5 for a look. It was £7.50 for something else, but I don't know. I
wouldn't ask for that.
Probably shouldn't ask. Maybe that's a personal audience with Sir Paul, because apparently Paul McCartney wanders the streets of Liverpool, and he doesn't care, does he?
No, not well. I believe so. What I've seen, uses public transport, doesn't have bodyguards, just goes when he pleases. What a guy! Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. I absolutely love the Beatles, and I've been around this city many a time as in a musical fashion, not looking at liverbirds, and it always fascinates me to think, because we do idolise them, they did change the face of music.
Oh yeah.
Some might argue that, but for me, there is a real sense of pride in this city, and I think that's owed to them as well. Yeah. They brought that feeling of pride in the music. They never ever lost the way. They kept their accents, didn't they?
Yeah. What was the first CD you ever bought? This is a loaded question.
Oh, God.
I wonder what it would be. Some people, or most people, would say Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits, because at the time when CDs came out, that was if you had that album, it was supposed to really show this dynamic quality of CD, like you were there in the room with them. Only now do we realise it wasn't quite as good as that. But Dire Straits' Brothers in Arms is definitely one of them, and it was one of the first in my collection. What was the first for you?
I can't think of the album name. It's just gone out of my head. It was Tears for Fears.
Oh, was it?
With the song, Badman song and Woman in Chains.
Ah.
A fantastic. I'll never forget. It was a Philips CD player. Got it at Christmas, 1989. I think it would have been that. And that was the first CD I ever listened to. And Badman song. Wow.
So mine was the Beatles.
Oh,
and my mum and dad bought me the White Album CD, because they said, if you're going to have actually, no, I think it might be the White Best Of, because there's a black one as well, isn't there? But there's a white and a black cover. Anyway, they bought me that because they said, if you're going to have something, and they saw the CD as this sort of major reinvention almost of in music technology. So I remember Dad saying, as he bought me this lovely stereo system, which I've still got today, it doesn't work, but I've still got it. I'll never get rid of it. I'll never ever get rid of it. And he said, your first CD, son, has to, and it's like musical education.
Passing it down.
He said it has to be the Beatles.
Yeah. The White Album's a tough one, though. That's got some obscure sounds on it. I quite like that album. Yeah, it is an unusual one. And it would really test the dynamics of a CD, because it would have been remastered as well for CD at the time.
I'm beginning to think now it might have been a best of with a white. It could have been the White Album. Anyway, look, it was the Beatles, and I think that says it says a lot, because my dad felt that my musical education with this brand new format could really only start with the Beatles, and here we are at the home of the Beatles. And one thing we passed on the way is Radio City, which is the Tower.
The Tower, Radio City Tower.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I don't know the history of that neither. As you're finding out here, geography's more my fashion. We won't get lost, but we won't have a clue what we're looking at.
Well, I can tell you about Radio City, because Radio City was a radio station I wanted to work for, and I wanted to work for it because the studio is positioned high up in the air, in that almost like the BT spaceship Tower in London. It is spaceship. It looks like a spaceship. What's that tower in Canada? Is it in Toronto?
Oh, Toronto.
It is,
yeah.
and this is a very miniature version of that. But that was I've got to work, not because I necessarily want to move to Liverpool or these hundreds of miles from home, but because I want to work in a spaceship.
I feel I've got to say, calm down.
Right, have you had enough of me? I tell you what I'll do, we'll cross to Studio Neil to point out some of these landmarks in a much more, not dour, but calm fashion, because I do feel I was accelerating there.
You've got to just interrupt and interject here. We were studies at the side of the old church, and everywhere has tints of lights. There's just little sparkles of lights on the liver birds themselves, on the liver bird building. He's lit up in these crisscross patterns. It looks beautiful tonight. Liverpool has come a long way over the years. I've seen it in its worst, and we're now seeing it in probably its more aesthetic best. It is a very special place.
What's that over there? That's a very modern building. I don't recognise that one.
I recognise it. It just took me 10 minutes to figure out what it is. It's the Museum of Liverpool. And do you know what? I've never been in it. It's not that old.
No.
I'd say that was built when Liverpool got the City of Culture.
Oh, of course, it was a European city of culture.
Yeah, and I think that was when that was built. But we're surrounded here by some of the most oldest buildings you could imagine.
But you looked at this one over here and you said that you feel that one's somehow, or maybe the White House is based on that. It's older than the White House.
It just looks like that, doesn't it?
The architecture around Liverpool is absolutely sublime.
Yeah. Well, we were just getting into then. You can see these red lit up tubes on the other side.
Oh yeah, on the
Mersey.
Okay, that's the other side, directly opposite me, through the dark and across the Mersey, which the ferry travelled. Cue the song. are these big three. Are there three, or they're more red lit up chimneys?
Yeah, they're the air vents for the tunnel, the Liverpool tunnel. There's two tunnels. There's the Wallasey tunnel, Kingsway, and then you've got the main tunnel from Liverpool over to the side that takes you into Wallasey and the Wirral and the peninsula of the Wirral. And I was just saying about further down along this coastline here on the other side, you've got all the old, there's dungeons and lots of very, very old sunken buildings underground where they used to actually put people or capture people if they were pirates and things like that. And
pirates?
And even the slave trade was a huge part of it, which is quite shocking. But I was telling Neil I visited a place called Bidston Lighthouse, and Bidston Lighthouse is quite a big viewpoint across all of New Brighton, Wallasey, incoming traffic, incoming boats into the estuary of the Mersey, and they had flags positioned 200 feet long on the top of Bidston Lighthouse, where the lighthouse keeper would warn or let people know what merchants were arriving and where the goods could be stored.
And how did he do that though? Because I would imagine the boats themselves had a flag system, didn't they?
Well, they'd see the flags on the boats, but they'd also then check them with the lighthouse, and then there would be a mast raiser. They'd have so many people raising over 100 of these huge semaphore flags would be raised to represent what merchants were coming into the city, or if they were pirates.
So they could tell by the semaphore flags.
The flags.
Yeah.
So then someone would be a marker here on the shores of Liverpool, possibly even in the liver of the merchant buildings, and they'd be watching out and seeing the flags that were raised to get people ready on the docks to bring in whatever produce or to protect the city against anyone that was coming in, or even the smuggling of slaves and the smuggling of goods. They would need these flags to be given passage to come and dock at Liverpool.
I'm not sure whether I'll pick up enough sound for you, but one of the most famous boats of the Mersey would be the ferry that crosses the Mersey. The extremely famous song. My dad loved Ferry Cross the Mersey. He did Ferry Cross the Mersey. Oh, Ferry Cross. Jerry and the Pacemakers, of course. And there's a slight joy, actually, in seeing the actual ferry. Look at that. This huge expanse of water across the River Mersey. And that's the ferry that takes you from one side to the other. Wonderful.
The famous seaport, Liverpool for 200 years was a major shipbuilding centre. It was a gateway to the world, and its links to being a port date back to 1207, the year, not the time. And by the end of the 19th century, the dock labour force alone numbered nearly 30,000 working on or for Liverpool's four import trades: cotton and sugar and timber and grain. Titanic was registered in Liverpool and so carried the city's name on her stern. Although she never visited the city, she had strong links with her home port. Titanic's managing company, the White Star Line, actually had its head office in Liverpool in James Street. From the mid-20th century, Liverpool's docks and traditional manufacturing industries went into a sharp decline. Containerization made the city's docks obsolete. They just simply weren't large enough. The unemployment rate in Liverpool rose to one of the highest in the UK, and it suffered in the national recessions of the 70s and 80s with high unemployment and rioting in some of the areas. From the late 1980s, the city started to bounce back and new museums opened. And in 2008, Liverpudlians and proud Scousers alike joined together to celebrate when Liverpool became the European capital of culture. Have we talked about that, or is that yet to come? On that note, the people of Liverpool are often referred to as Scousers or Liverpudlians, or both, and the word Scouse comes from the word lobscouse, which is a type of stew brought to the city by soldiers from Norway. It's been a popular dish apparently in Liverpool ever since, although I didn't find it anywhere on any of the menus in any of the restaurants I went to. Liverpudlians use this colloquialism, Scousers themselves, and don't find it offensive. In fact, it's a badge of honour, according to some websites. They proudly speak in their own unique way, and I've got a couple of examples for you. Webs means shoes. Devoed means devastated. Chocker or chocker means you're busy. Bifter is a cigarette. Scrap means food. Gowed means go ahead. And Aussie means hospital, not an Osborne. He's most certainly a Brummie. Those not in the UK lost yet? So am I.
And we return to Liverpool. My walk with Mali shortly. We're on the photo walk with a few of your letters. It wouldn't be a photo walk without your letters, would it? I was just thinking about Richard's why a moment ago, and I sort of garbled on a bit and wasn't planning to, about my own why and how much it's changed. I think our whys do change, don't they? The more we do something, the more we live life. Our whys, they weave, a bit like a pendolino, they weave round the corners. Sometimes nice and gently, other times not so. But Richard, thank you. I don't know whether I did say it properly. Thank you so much for your letter that you sent in that started today's show. Your honesty, your vulnerability. I was really taken by it. So thank you. Sincerely. If you like to write in, then I do love to hear from you. Send your letters, your emails to stories@photowalk.show. Stories@photowalk.show. If you're sending pictures in, then 2,500 pixels wide, please. Or if you don't know how to resize your images, stand by. I'll do. Is it the heavy lifting, Neil? Yes, I'll do the heavy lifting for you, and I'll resize them for you. So just send me the pictures as they are, as they come out of your phones or your cameras or whatever. Right. This, as I read my letters out on my walk back in Berkshireville, this would have been a letter I think I'd have found a cafe in Liverpool to sit down and read, with the gentle clinking of cups and saucers behind us, because I think this is a long letter, but it's got a glorious start, middle and end moment. It's from Tony Lorenzo, who's just up the road actually from where I live. He's in Oxford land, as he says. Hello, photo walkers. I've just been out walking my dog, listening to the show as usual, and reflecting on the stories I always remind myself to share. And on that note, here it is, and it might seem odd at the start, but 12 years ago, says Tony, I began searching for someone I didn't know. A dozen years back, I was studying in a small yet intriguing place called Hatfield at the University of Hertfordshire. Tony, that used to be my stamping ground too. Like every Erasmus student, I was obsessed with the idea of visiting London. On the initial weekend of doing so, I headed to Camden Town. I've always been fascinated with old pictures, and as a kid I used to collect family photos from various houses just to compile an album that was uniquely mine. See, I was the kid who didn't play football at school, as he says you might have guessed. Not necessarily, Tony, but I have to interject here. If I were a novelist, the idea of the young boy that collects photos from different families to build a story, an album that's uniquely his, whew, that's a genius setup for a book, isn't it? Is it called setup anyway, says Tony. I wound up purchasing some random pictures from a second-hand stall, £1 for 5 pictures. I didn't pay much attention to them initially, leaving the envelope on my desk for almost 2 weeks before finally taking a closer look. Out of those 5 pictures, see, this is quite a sort of chance story in many ways, because you discarded those, and I dare say by the sounds of it you didn't look properly at the pictures when you bought them. But out of those 5 pictures, 2 featured the same smiling girl. One had a scribble on the back: June at the beach, 1937. June being the little girl in the picture. And that's where my search began. For the next 10 years, I tirelessly sought June. I frequented Camden almost every weekend that year. spending hours sifting through the vast collection of old pictures just to try and spot June. Initially it was just her, then family members, and eventually I started noting the scribbles on the back. I even noticed a connection between some of the photos. A hair from the family's dog got caught in the shutter at some point, appearing in the corner of every single picture. I started this journey alone, but ended up dragging my friends to that second-hand shop to help me. And by the end of the year, we gathered 67 pictures. Now, the next challenge was locating the spots where the pictures were taken. Oh my word. It took a while, as back then we didn't have the incredible tools available now to match pictures online. I scoured through every castle on a cliff in the UK, for instance, and there are hundreds for one of the particular pictures. And finally, I identified the location that served as the backdrop for actually half of the pictures. Scarborough. I live in Oxford. That is a 5-hour drive from Scarborough, but a good friend volunteered to drive me there, accompanied by my flatmate, who was even more excited than I seemed to be about the journey. Well, we spent a week there, visiting each spot, and it was one of the most memorable experiences of my life. Capturing each location in a before and after picture collection was immensely satisfying. Meanwhile, while I was there, I tried to locate a swimming pool from the 1938 picture. So I went to the local library to check their archives. Now, a lady from the newspaper, coincidentally, was present there. I mean, this is where I say it's the happenstance. The chance of this story is just delicious. She asked me about my activities, and when I explained the whole story, she requested a picture of June to publish in the Scarborough News, aiming to locate June's family. That night, I received nearly 100 emails. June was my mum. I'm the little girl in the pictures. That's my sister. But we were cautious not to publish her date of birth, which I'd documented precisely from the information on the back of the photos, or indeed her surname, and none of the emails provided a definitive answer. Isn't that a shame, Tony? I was thinking, people saying, I'm her sister, when they're not at all. That's sort of time wasting. Anyway, let's not ruin a good story. I truly believed I wouldn't ever find her until an email arrived the day before we left Scarborough. I know June. Her name is June Lomax. She was born in Yaxley, 1930, and passed away last June. Well, I can't describe the feeling, Neil. It was like calling out to somebody who'd long gone and finally hearing them respond with, I'm here. That very afternoon, we drove 2 hours to Yaxley to meet someone called Sally. Sally's mum had been June's nurse. She recounted June's life story to me, and we stopped right in front of her grave. She was buried alongside her last husband, whom she used to dance with at the local community centre. The engraving at the bottom of the gravestone still gives me chills. Reunited to dance again. June's story is extensive, incredibly so. It caught the attention of the Spanish newspaper El Mundo, and they produced a mini documentary that's available online. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to embed that film, because it's on YouTube, on our show page. So you can go and see that if you go to the show page for the programme today. Apologies for the lengthy letter. Don't apologise. This has been amazing. I attempted to condense a long story as much as possible. I'm attaching some of the before and after pictures to this email. Thank you for them. I've got them, and I will put them on the show page. Thank you again for your show. I never walk my dog, Mina, without tuning in. It's inspiring and expands my photographic knowledge each day. Take care, your friend, Tony Lorenzo in Oxford. Tony. Whew, what a story. So yes, I'm going to put the link to the film on the website and embed the film actually. And right now, yes, I'll put those pictures on as well. And you may well be thinking, as I did before I pressed play on this film that I will embed, that's the story. Done, dusted. But no, there is a certain twist in the 15 minutes film toward the end, and I'll not share that because I watched it at lunchtime yesterday, just after I prepared this script and the mailbag. And when I got to the end, I was like, that's me with an open mouth, by the way. Do yourself a favour. I'm talking to my other listener and you now. Watch the film, which is on the show page, which has some of Tony's amazing detective work pictures when he's gone to find the places June was photographed in. And Tony, this and my first letter today from Richard, this is perhaps, I might have to rewrite again. This is my why. As much as the why that I edited on the train, there's a point here, definitely, as I was reading your story, I thought I'm going to have to rewrite, because this is definitely my why. That connection that you find with people, and your story is just incredible. And I love this connection that we've now got, and those who listen to this program have got with you and your story. Anyway, as I say, for fear of repeating myself, repeating, do yourself a favour, take 15 minutes to watch the film. And Tony, thank you. A flask for your detective work seems a scant reward, but you deserve the famous, not so famous flask. So I'm sending one out to you. I think we should rejoin Mali, don't you, in Liverpool? Our adventures of a Monday evening walking. So, by the powers of podcasting, let's step back in time and go to the northwest of England land. Just diagonally opposite the Liver building, there's some sculptures of the Beatles here, all four of them, and Ringo, as always,
at the back.
Oh, they positioned him at the back.
Poor chap. You know what? Pete Best's not there though, so he's no to worry about.
Let me get a sketchbook. Now, we are working in the dark here. This is going to be a really good test for Lightroom's, and you have to use RAW because it does not work with JPEGs. But Lightroom's denoise is just... Oh, can you hear that? There we go. Lightroom's AI denoise is just amazing. Have you used it?
A little bit. I have. To be fair, I've not shot a lot in the dark until of late. I'm doing a secret project that's shooting local, and I went out last week, actually did a 6-mile walk. I did a lot of shooting in the dark, but I've just got to say, I've jumped into the fan club of the GR3, and I've took a shot of the Beatles sculpture here. ISO 64, no, it's just dropped. Actually, it was ISO 3200 at 1/25th of a second, handheld, and it's bang on.
Now, what's the aperture?
2.8.
2.8. Oh, right, because I thought for a minute you were going to say it's f2, and you've got, like, John in focus at the front, which is going to put Ringo right out of focus. Poor Ringo. I'm going to try and get a picture of the four lads here, and Ringo is about 2 feet back from the other boys. But I'm going to shoot up into the air, and what should happen? I mean, they're illuminated by some lighting at the riverfront here, but what should happen here is that I get one of the Liver birds in the background on the Liver building. So let me do that again. So I'm at 100th shutter speed. Now I know I can go less than that. I could handhold this at 60th without a problem at all, but I'm going to do this because I'd like to show you what the denoise is like. 12,800 ISO, f2, shutter speed 100. I'm focusing on the front Beetle here. This is George. That's John.
John, Ringo, George, and back
and that's Paul at the end. Yeah, there we go. So let me get this. I've got a Union flag flying high just to his right, and I wonder what denoise will do to that.
Fantastic.
Let's read what's inscripted before them. Last played in Liverpool at the Empire Theatre, December the 5th, 1965. 2 years before I was born, Mali.
Wow. Wow.
But they never really left. They're synonymous with this city. A tribute on behalf of fans worldwide, funded by the Cavern Club. There's all those £5 that we pay to the Cavern Club, so it's going to a good place. Andy Edwards was the artist. Made it in December 2015, as I thought, bronze. Beautiful. What fantastic sculpture. And you know, the nice thing is it's been really well respected. Not even the pigeons have visited here, eh?
They've not, have they?
It's almost like they know.
There is a chap called Stan. He comes out with his brush every day and cleans them off with a bit of furry liquid.
Are you making this up? I'd have believed you then. Now, we're walking further on towards where?
We're heading to the main part. Did you hear that? We're heading to main part. You can tell I'm not a Scouser, can't you? We're heading to main part where all the Albert Dock, the main merchant area, as the boats would have come in and unloaded and left all the tea, tobacco or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's very, very well-to-do now. You can go and get yourself a coffee for £8 and a scone for 50. It's very, very nice, actually.
That's proper southern prices.
It's civilised in here now. It's civilised.
Yeah.
Beautiful, that. Look at that.
Look at this. Now, in the daytime, this would be amazing, but in the nighttime, now you've been doing a lot more. This is the Museum of Liverpool, and has all these sort of diagonal lines about the building, doesn't it? And it's falling off to darkness.
Oh, that's a bit special. Just a portrait shot of it, leaving out the full detail of the building. But because of the way it's floodlit, you've got these deep contrasty areas where the actual building is covering the light on itself, therefore giving these diagonal shapes that are very contrasty. It's beautiful, but with no one. We need someone in the shot, really.
You need somebody for scale, doesn't it? This is when, particularly in the dark, you need to show scale with people. You want me to walk in?
Go on. Ah, love it. Wow, look at that. Some of the best modelling of a shadow.
I think you're winding me up as much as you were with Stan.
Stan's the man. He's real. He's real, I tell you.
Since Mali referred to him, the world-famous fifth Beatle, Pete Best, has his own infamy in the story of the band's history. Randolph Peter Best was the drummer for the Beatles from 1960 to 62, but he was given his marching orders immediately prior to the band becoming world famous. And he's one of several people who've been referred to as a fifth Beatle. He's been quoted as saying the Beatles, or the other members, were somewhat jealous of him. Pete Best was the one most often screamed for, apparently. Brian Epstein didn't think so and fired him and replaced him with Ringo Starr. The reason was because when the band auditioned for EMI, the record company, producer George Martin wasn't very happy with his drum skills and thought he'd replace him on the recordings anyway. There were three other fifth Beatles brought in as stand-ins to cover illness and so on, but it's Pete that perhaps looks back with the most clear, if only, eyes. But I don't think you need a lecture on the history of the Beatles, certainly not from me, although I will link to a really interesting video on the Beatles website about another Pete, or Peter Jackson, who talks about making the Beatles' last ever music video. Right, next stop then, Albert Docks.
So this is the world famous Albert Docks. And as I walked in, first of all I saw this lovely, I don't know if that's a fishing boat or not. It is. It's a very old trawler, and I was taken by that. But then in front of it, there was this huge propeller. I thought, what's that? And this is really famous, Mali. This is the Lusitania propeller. I mean, I'm reading it, obviously, from 1909, but it's a very famous ship, isn't it?
1907.
Well, 1909 is when they brought the propeller back.
I lost that.
But the propeller was one of four from passenger liner RMS Lusitania. She sailed between Liverpool and New York until she was torpedoed by a German submarine on the 7th of May 1915. People think of the U-boat sometimes as a weapon of war from the Second World War. But actually there were U-boats around in the First World War. And I don't know, I'm sure there are many now saying, I knew that, Neil, but I think there are a great many people that don't realise that
I didn't know
that was a ship of its day. But look at the size of that. You can only imagine the...
She sank in under 20 minutes off the coast of Southern Ireland. Wow.
People were outraged by the deliberate targeting of a passenger ship, and Lusitania's fate still causes controversy today. And here it says, look, this Lusitania, life, loss, legacy. Huge boat.
Huge, yeah.
Goodness. I wonder if I can get a decent... So it's lit by huge halogens from one side, and the interesting thing is that it does cast light beautifully diagonally across one side of the propeller. I'll take a picture, and this trawler that's in the background, that's all decorated up for Christmas. I think you'll get an idea of it. There's some sort of idea of scale. I mean, the boat's a bit further back, but you'll get the idea. Again, we're diving into high ISO territory. 4,000, 1/2/5. I'm going to need to change my auto ISO settings, I think, Mali, because it's making me shoot at 1/2/5 and 110 and 100, and I don't need to. I can handheld at 60 quite well. Are you quite good at?
I'm 1/25th, 1/20th of a second there, but that's only because of this camera.
Yeah.
But f2.8, I'm a bit concerned the shots I'm taking. Oh, it's wide open, that. It's wide open. I have shot with it wide open, and the shots seem to stand up on this camera.
Yeah.
It's witchcraft.
Why did you buy this? Because
For what we're doing now.
Yeah, well, because I've talked about this on the programme before. Cameras that you look onto the back of make me feel like I'm just shooting with my iPhone.
Yeah, I agree completely till I got home and looked at the RAW files. And if you shot on an iPhone, no matter who you are, what you say, they're an amazing piece of equipment, but very digitised, and they lose quality very quickly if you want to make them anything above your iPhone size.
Yeah.
So they look great on an iPhone or an iPad, but then anything, even on an iPad, they start looking very over-sharpened. And I got the GRs to have an everyday camera. I've heard that saying many, many times, and when I look back when I was a kid, I had a camera on me all the time. You know, I had a little Fuji with me all the time, and I thought, right, so I was quite happy to shoot with that, and the images work great, but technology's come such a long way. Shooting at high ISOs like 6400 here, f2.8 at 1/25th of a second, and I've had just a quick peek on the back, and the pin's sharp, and there's hardly any noise.
And it's such a small camera as well, isn't it? This is a pocketable camera.
Well, I've been at work all day and I've come out and met you, and it's just been in my bag. If I was having to bring a camera, it'd be on my desk. I wouldn't be able to feel comfortable walking away. I've just left this on my desk and in my bag, and know it's hidden, it's fine, you know. And it's a tool, isn't it, for different types of jobs. Like all weekend I've been shooting with the Nikon Z7 with a 24-200 lens, which is quite a big setup. But then to switch to this almost feels like playtime.
There's a discretion, isn't there, with a camera like this? I remember when I borrowed the GR3, I had the model before yours, I think, this one. And I borrowed it to take it out and test drive it. MPP, I'm doing some more actually soon, some MPP test drives. And I was stunned by the image quality, and I remember taking that camera, I think it was that one, I'm hoping it's not the Leica that I took out, but I think it was that one that I took out. I took it to the Duxford Air Museum, and I was making photographs of people while they were looking at airframes, and I was right next to them, and they didn't really spot that I was making a picture at all.
Yeah.
And that's because I was looking at the back of a screen and it wasn't up to my eye.
Yeah, well, if you turn it portrait, it looks like you're looking at your phone anyway. It's just a black box. Someone passing by, they just see you've got a black thing in your hand. Especially in portrait, it just looks like you're looking at your phone, but you're actually grabbing a shot of the surroundings or a person walking through light and shadow. And yeah, the debate's always open on taking pictures of people without them being known, but I tend to do a bit of both, me. But it's very much about the moment with this camera. Very much about grabbing a moment, and that really excites me. I'm fascinated by it.
Do you know what I'd really like to see developers make? R&D, take note of this. If somebody can make a camera like this, or maybe, I love my X100, as you know, or my 100s. Yeah. I've been through the original one, the S, the T, the V, or the F, the V, and whatever comes next. Yeah. I would love somebody to, as you said, when you point the camera down, maybe somebody could make an angled lens to come out of 45 degrees so that you're looking down at your camera, but actually the camera's looking forward.
Well, if this is the thing, if they'd have put
Well, that's what 360s will do eventually. That's what Insta360s and those cameras will do. You're talking about a swivel screen, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I'm talking about pointing the camera down to the ground so people think, well, he's not taking a picture of me. Yeah. But actually, look at this, if the lens then went like that out of the body,
like a tilt shift,
tilt shift, exactly. What an amazing street camera that might be.
See, I just think having the screen tilting is enough for that, which I've found with the
Well,
Nikon.
it is, but you've still got to face the camera forward.
Yeah, but do you know what? It's amazing. People look at people, not the camera.
Yeah.
When you put the camera to your face, then you've combined both, and they've got you.
Yeah.
Where if you're not looking at the person, you're looking at your camera, they discard you. They think, oh, he's not doing anything.
That's true.
So I feel I've learned that even more. I've done 3 street vids with this camera now. None of them are out yet.
Does that include the secret?
Yeah, including the secret one. So I'm looking forward to editing them, but I've already had a sneak peek at the pictures, like I say, and I wouldn't have this camera with me now if it was lacking quality. I am a big believer of a good quality in my images. I'm not a fan of like noise and shaky, and I do like a bit of, I know, dare I say this, especially on your channel with film photographers or people who don't mind a bit of movement in the street. I quite like getting it where it's just so, to a degree, reasonably sharp, I guess.
Well, I'm varying. The other day I met up with, went down to the South Coast, the retoucher that works with me on my social photography work. She lives down there. I haven't seen her for years. That's the difference in the industry now, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't see somebody for a long time. Yeah. Anyway, she said, come down, we're going to do a photo walk, which I've done, and it's going to be one of my newsletter photo walks. But she said, I've got a surprise. And out of the bag came my original Canon 5D. She said, I found this the other day. It's been in a cupboard for so long, and I know that you talk about not leaving things in cupboards. Would you like to buy it back? And I said, you bet I would. It's a terrible camera when it comes to high ISO, because you go past 1600 and it's like you're standing in a snowstorm. But the rendition of the colours, the files, there's this kind of creamy nature to them. And anybody who's had the original Canon 5D will appreciate this. We're doing a lot of tech talk this week. I might get a nosebleed soon. Coming up north is enough for one. I'm going to get a tech one as well.
But even with a really good film camera, the noise was good. The quality seemed good.
This wasn't necessarily good noise.
No, that was a digital though. I was thinking film there, thinking even older. I've just made a statement there about how looking at a certain quality. But do you know what? Some of the older cameras, I remember having a Praktika film camera, and it could shoot that on Ilford, like black and white, and the noise was, I was happy with it. Yeah. It weren't a snowstorm. I think early digital cameras though, not great at high ISO. But today we're in a world where you can shoot in the dark. Yeah. I feel like Batman.
Right, where are we going? Into the docks? That way.
We're there at last. The docks, Albert Docks. Home once, as you heard, to thousands of dock workers. Now fancy wine bars, really nice hotels and apartments. And the home of British television darlings, Richard and Judy, for many years. Husband and wife team, Richard and Judy, met in 1982 when they were working on separate programmes at a television company called Granada. They hosted This Morning from when it was born in 1988 until the turn of the new century. The series was a mix of household tips and phone-ins and cookery and celeb interviews, and lasted 2 hours each weekday morning on ITV. And it was broadcast from here, the Albert Dock in Liverpool, looking into and onto the waters. Very creative for television that was usually hidden away very much behind the closed doors of a windowless studio.
It might have been all of it.
Yeah.
The whole corner, but if you look there,
we're standing in the. This is the Albert Dock. Mali used to come down here, didn't you?
Yeah.
As because this is it's the sort of L-shaped bit of Albert Dock, and it was the I'm not sure if is it the birthplace of television as we know it in the UK. I mean, we were slow to catch on with daytime telly, weren't we?
Oh, I don't know. What about Pebble Mill at 1 and all that?
Pebble Mill.
Do you remember that? Yeah.
I do. If that was much more serious though, wasn't it, Pebble Mill, or was it a magazine programme? Anyway, look, we're mentioning programmes people in other countries are thinking, I have no idea what you're talking about. Suffice to say, this part of the docks of Liverpool, I mean, this hundreds of years ago would have had all sorts of ships and traders going on, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you could imagine all the masts and flags and hustle and bustle and shouting, and just this would have been full of people walking up and down with bales or whatever. You can feel it. And that's something I really like about the cities and the project I've got of visiting cities across the country and photographing them. It's not so much for the history though, it's just a sense of feeling and architecture and the people within. But when we were kids, we used to come here, me and a lad called Steve from, I was at Gamble College in St Helens, which was a well-known art college. We used to come and dance in front at Glass whenever cameras would be filming Richard and Judah. All kids used to come down here and try and get on dancing in background. You know?
So they'd be doing the television programme, looking out onto Albert Docks, and you'd be in front of them doing a silly dance.
Yeah, pretty much.
Did you get on?
No, never.
No, it was live. If you chose your moment, of course you got on.
Yeah, no, never go on. My mum never told me, although she shouldn't have done, because I could have got in trouble. I weren't supposed to be here. I was wagging college, as they say. You'll have to explain what wagging is.
Well, I think we know that means skipping.
Truancy.
Skipping, truancy. So this was a studio. This was the studio complex. Would have gone, I think, round in an L shape. And then it looked onto the docks. Yeah. The ice cream van then was very, what would you say, 1950s, early 60s looking.
It was.
There's
quite a lot of them vendors along the Albert Dock way, and sometimes you can't get a shot. Neil was saying, rightly so, it was the back end of the...
Well, I was looking for the diagonal of the ice cream van with a light sort of just to the edge, which made it feel a bit like a sort of one of those Parisian pictures.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get the angle, and then I thought, I'll just give up and walk away, but you didn't.
Well, some beautiful autumn colours behind it, where there's an old looking lamp lighting up the tree above it, and I thought, I can't get the shot, but you know what, for this new thing I've been trying this out, is to shoot it flat on, shoot it like along a plane, if you like, so getting the whole of the bus in, the ice cream van with the tree, but just as a square with the ice cream van flat on in the middle.
So a lot more flat on, almost record shots.
Yeah, a record shot, but looks quite graphical, I think. But you've got a nice little moment of something that caught your eye, and it still works aesthetically. Okay, it's not the diagonal, it's not the perspective or the shot we wanted, but then making something out of it that has a pleasing, like a collect. Could you imagine if we went and took every single one of them vendors flat on as a series of shots?
Yes,
they'd look beautiful together.
And you've got
they?
a collection, haven't you?
Yeah.
I want to ask you, because this year's there's been a step change. We've talked about this on the programme before in terms of your style of photography, because you, at the start of the year, I'd say trees and landscapes, that was what I associated you with. But something's happened this year where you've started experimenting and enjoying finding urban trees, if you like.
I guess that's because you've got to know me a bit, but I vibrate. I can't sit still. Things are always happening and changing in my mind, and I keep interested that way. I like change.
Yeah.
It doesn't frighten me. I like change a lot. Not when finances are involved, but I do like changing the way I shoot, think, and ever evolving.
Yeah.
Kaizen really got me a long time ago. I worked for a chap up Leyland. He had a garage fixing Land Rovers, and he spoke a lot about Kaizen, and he really knew all about this Japanese culture of forever improving. But then I also started thinking about forever changing to improve. So even though something might not work, not to just leave it, but look at how can you do something that improves it, or at least get something out that situation. And then doing that to everyday life as well, you know, is always looking how can we improve what we're doing. And that stuck with me. Vibrating. Ooh.
Constantly changing. I didn't know that. I this year I've got to know you more.
Yeah.
And that's something that I did not know, that you'd been doing urban photography way before.
Back in 1980, shut up truck, 1989-90 at college, we were given cameras, and then it really happened when I went to Salford University. And it was called Manchester back then, the rave scene.
Manchester, yes.
Yeah, I'm going to have to dig out some of my contact strips, because everything was done on contact strips and marked out, find your faves, where you do your burnishing, you know, you're dodging and burning with cut out bits of wood or plastic or whatever, and using different coloured like celluloids just to let light through in different ways, and just playing around in the dark room, and I absolutely loved it. But I didn't photograph people so much. It was things like curbstones or grids or
sketchbooking.
Yeah. I guess it was. Yeah.
If you look at the greats like Edward Weston, etc., and their sketchbooking in some respects.
Never thought of it like that. Didn't know what I was doing. Still don't. Don't care. Just keep doing it.
Do you, the pigeonholing thing then, because I know with Let's Create, Let's Talk, the photography podcast, for the full title, you have had this feeling that people have put you in that, you know, that sort of, pigeonholed you almost with landscapes and trees. And I've done that to an extent by saying, you know, Mali of the trees.
Yeah, definitely. People on the group, Let's Create on Facebook, tend to post a lot of landscape. And it's interesting when you break out of that and I do share something different and people go, oh, I can do that. Can I share that? And it's like, you can share pottery. You can put poetry on. You can write music. You can do whatever you like. And I think that's really important to try and get that across. Yeah. But of course, people are joining, it's growing, and not everyone knows the ethos. It's hard to get that across to people that you can be free to create, free to do what you like. And I think that should be with everything, actually. Unless it's specifically you're tasked with a course to do something. You're doing it for a reason. But otherwise, I think you should you've got a camera, use it whenever, wherever, whatever.
Well, this is a good juncture, I think, because we're going to cross the junction to get further back into the city once again. Now, we've been through the docks and come sort of round. And this is a good opportunity to introduce Valérie Jardin, because it's I said it would be a street week this week, and here we are walking the streets of Liverpool. Great opportunity now. Valérie Jardin talking about visual stories. Here's Valérie.
Valérie, fresh back from... Well, I'm not sure I should use the word fresh, because...
Don't feel very fresh right now, Ben.
Oh, don't take offence of that. What I meant was the jet lag. It doesn't get any easier, does it? Even if you're used to doing it. I mean, you travel once a month you must do a European odyssey.
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's just, it depends on a lot of factors, the weather and everything. You know, I come back from Paris where it was a bit wet, and I arrive here and we have a snowstorm the day I come back. So it's like, okay, a little sunshine and a little warmth would probably, make me feel a little bit better right now, but it's okay. I'll get over my 7-hour jet lag.
Prescribe maybe the middle part of Africa if you want that sort of sunshine right now. You'd be okay. I can secure you that sunshine. But you've been doing your workshops. There's a couple of workshops coming up, of course, that have, I think you've got some spaces, haven't you?
Yes, actually. So I finished the year with Paris, and I start the following year with Paris in January. Yeah. So there's one spot left for Paris.
Only one.
Just a weekend.
Right.
Yeah, it's a weekend in January, and then I think there is a spot left for Madrid in April. I think in between there is I'm going to Mexico, and there's like one spot here, one spot there. So if people want to grab them, that'd be great. But yes, the year is starting to fill up. New York is almost full as well. So it's good.
Madrid and Mexico, I think they are two other places where you can secure yourself some sunshine.
Yes. Well, living in Minnesota where we have 6 months of snow, I plan smart.
Is it 6 months of snow in Minnesota? No.
Yeah, it starts. And now we're in snow until April.
Is it? Oh,
yeah.
Sure.
And actually, it started in October this year. So, it's going to be a good 6 months from the first snowstorm to the last one.
I got pictures a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure I got them from Alberta, where they were, which I know is not Minnesota, where they had snow, and I was thinking, not yet, surely. Mm-hmm. But all right, okay.
And I was only gone for 2 weeks, and I left in a T-shirt and came back in a snowstorm. So you never know.
Well, think warm thoughts while we talk about our visual stories for this week. You've sent me. We've got a bit of a choice here, actually. Mm-hmm. We're not going with a theme this time. We've come away from themes for a few months now, just so that we can concentrate on individual pictures and talk around them. And I've got the opportunity now to. Well, I don't want to choose. I don't want to say my favourites because all of them have got a story behind them. But I'm going to start with the man in the bookshop. I am drawn to it because I quite like. I know he's not a perfect silhouette as such. He's not a silhouette, but there's a silhouette-y feel to it, and you're drawn in. I mean, the books. And we'll put these on the show page. The books draw you into the photograph. But what drew your eye?
Well, actually, all of these pictures are from last week. So
okay.
I shot this on Saturday. And we're recording this on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
In one of the passages in Paris, what drew my eye is the timeless feel of the photograph. And I have a series called Paris Intemporel, which means timeless Paris. And that totally fits. I think I already put it in the gallery on my website because it totally fits in that timeless Paris. And there's so much of that in Paris, which always surprises me. I mean, this could be from, 30, 40 years ago.
It could be, yeah.
And I just love how the gentleman is dressed. It's very film noir. He has the suit jacket and the hat. And he is in a silhouette form because he's definitely backlit above and back. So when I walked by the bookshop and I caught sight of him, I got this shot. That was my first shot. And I waited for some kind of a gesture where he's actually about to grab a book on the shelf. And then because he's on a ladder, not a tall ladder, but like a four, like, I don't know, how do you call those ladders?
They're just the small sort of medium height ones, aren't they?
Yeah.
Two or three, three steps, it looks like.
Yeah, so I took a vertical shot.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's probably better because we see the full ladder, right? And so I had one of each, which occasionally I do if I have time. Like here, he's obviously not moving on his ladder. So I grabbed 2 shots and then kept on walking. I was just standing outside the doorway and I shot at 23 millimeter. And upon looking at the pictures that night, I realized it wasn't about the ladder. It was about all those books, this sea of books. Yes. And that's why the horizontal frame is so much stronger. We see that he's on a ladder. We don't see the bottom of the ladder, but he's surrounded by books. And that's what the story is about.
So the books lead you in, don't they? And without that horizontal, you would not have that benefit, would you?
And it's thousands of books.
Yes.
So the teaching moment here is really, if you have time, try a vertical shot too. Try 2 different approaches because at the moment, I really thought the vertical shot would be stronger. I never even looked at it, to be honest, because when I saw the first shot, my first instinct was right. Yes. The first shot was the right one. Yeah.
I was looking back at a bunch of my photographs for a particular webpage I'm making, and I noticed that I shoot a lot horizontal. I see but it's because we see horizontally. We don't turn our heads 90 degrees and look vertically. Now, I know some photographs, of course, lend themselves perfectly to the vertical. You favour horizontal, though, don't you?
More and more. I think actually more now that I have a flip screen. For 8 years, for 8 years of shooting with the X100, it didn't have a flip screen. So I was so used to flipping the camera more often because I did not have the flip screen to look down on. And so I realized, looking back, I shoot more horizontal shots now than I did before the camera offered me that flip screen that I can just look down on, which is even more inconspicuous. So I was more likely to actually flip my camera horizontally. I still do a lot. I mean, obviously, you need to give yourself space, especially when you're working with limitation of a 23 millimeter lens. If, for example, you're waiting in front of a great backdrop and you don't know how close to you people will walk by, if the perfect subject walks by really close to you, well, you better be in a vertical shot or you're going to cut something from the person. So it's about making those decisions, before you press the shutter, obviously, and to give yourself the most chance. And then, of course, if it's a person standing and it's all about vertical, and it would make no sense to add a lot more information and a lot of distraction, then vertical makes more sense. It isolates the subject a lot more.
Having said that, it makes sense then to go vertical and talk about the. I love this picture. This is this. I don't know. I might title it myself as nonchalance. He says, trying to sound vaguely Parisian, because this is what this photograph that will be on the show page is all about. It's a girl. She looks like she's taking a young woman. Rather, she looks like she's taking maybe a break from her work. Maybe she works in that pizza place that I can see referenced in the top left-hand corner of the frame. It's vertical. She's got a cigarette in her right hand, and she's just kind of like, she's easy. It's an easy shot.
Yes, she's actually on her cigarette break, and I was regrouping my workshop participants, and we were waiting for a couple more to join us. And as I was waiting, I saw her smoking, and she's smoking a real cigarette, and she's not on her phone, which I don't photograph people on their phone.
Do you not?
And real cigarettes are a lot more photogenic than e-cigarettes, which, don't look quite as nice. Paris, it's Paris. So of course people are smoking, and it's such a Paris moment. So as she was just leaning inside the gallery, but against the gate that actually
kind of
closes the passage, the passageway at night. So for her not to see me, I positioned myself closer to the fence. People will see the gate is open and folded, and I focused on her. But I'm using the part that she's leaning against as a foreground element out of focus. And then again, here it's about getting the right focus and then waiting for the decisive moment. And the moment was when she blew the smoke out. And so we see the smoke. And so, it actually worked well. And she's interesting. She has a lot of tattoos on her arms. We only see partial view of her face and then the smoke. And I think it was an efficient way to photograph her without her seeing me, and while being super respectful of her time, because she's on a break. I never want to disrupt anything. I don't want people to see me, and yet I'm shooting really close at 23. So it's really finding ways to stay invisible, either by positioning yourself and being partially hidden yourself, and working quite fast so that you don't stand there forever either.
When you're making these particular kind of photographs, where you're waiting for a moment and you see it and you get it, are you working in burst mode?
For this one, if I'm in burst, I would do a 3 burst.
Right.
Not any more than that, because then you have to look at more pictures. I don't think I was for this one, but for some of them, absolutely. And we'll probably discuss that for other pictures. If you have to work fast and you're in a dark, if it's quite dark, so you increase your chance, of course, if you're in a burst mode. But I always tell my students, go into burst, but don't do like a burst of 15 frames per second. Just limit yourself to 3 or 4. And it's good practice, for example, if they have to capture the dynamic stepping of someone coming towards them or something. They're more likely to catch it in a burst. They still have to recognize which one is the strongest frame.
This could only be Paris, this particular picture. We are looking along a street. There's several things going on in terms of the characters within. Well, there's 3 characters. There's silhouettes of 2 people talking to each other, and a lonely French, I'd like to think French, pigeon in the foreground, and the cobblestones leading up this very Parisian side street. And I love it because, and you'll see it if you look on the show page, I love this darkness drawing you into this picture. It's fairly well illuminated at the end, and that's what provides your silhouette. That's what makes the silhouette so strong, of course. So what were your thinkings? What were your thinkings? What were your thoughts and what's your teachings?
Well, here it was all about the leading line.
Yes.
And it's a zigzag leading line.
Yeah,
so
yes, it is.
This picture should be called Zigzag, or Life is a Zigzag or something. And so I have a low angle of view looking up this narrow street that has the center. I don't know how you call that. The center where the water will run. It's usually flat, and then there is cobblestone on each side. But it's in the tradition of old medieval streets, really. Yeah. And so I have this leading line, which ends up being more of a zigzag. And there actually is one of those instances where I had to wait a few minutes because there were a few people going up and down, but nothing really spectacular. And then this guy with a bicycle and this woman just... She was going up, he was going down, and they start talking to each other. And there comes a pigeon. Okay, now I have an added element of interest. Yes. So I'm waiting patiently for the pigeon to get into my shot because I'm literally on the ground. I have my shot is framed. The people were starting to look in my direction, but then they saw the pigeons like, oh, she's taking pictures of the pigeon. So they kind of ignored me, which was good because I didn't want them to look at me. They're well aware of me. I mean, there's no way to hide. But the pigeon came into my leading line and starting to cross it right in that bright spot. So the pigeon is as well very well silhouetted. And then the people, at one point, one reaches out to the other. And so I kind of like that added element.
Yeah. And in terms of teachings?
Well, if you have a silhouette, low angle will work better.
Yes, yeah.
Because your silhouette will stand out more in the bright spot of the sky.
Are you on your knees, literally here?
Not really, but I'm
close
down there. The camera is almost down to the ground.
Yeah.
So
it was dear Tom Stoddart, the late Tom Stoddart, the photojournalist, who said, "I can always tell how good a photographer is by looking at his or her trousers, and if they're scuffed and they don't look their best, they're working harder than anybody else."
That's right. I mean, if you shoot everything at eye level, it's going to be very boring.
Yeah.
And when I look at a body of work, I can tell if the photographer only looks through the viewfinder because they're a lot less likely to shoot from a higher vantage point or a lower vantage point than someone who uses live view. And seeing everything at eye level gets really boring quickly.
We're going to take some through to the extra mile. Can we end with one more, though?
Sure.
I'd like to focus upon the picture of the gentleman who's walking away from you towards the coast. So this is Normandy now. We've moved from Paris to Normandy. The wind is blowing open his jacket's bellowing with the wind coming towards him off the coast, I would assume. Although it doesn't look a very windy day. It's windy enough. And what's interesting about this is for all those that say, I don't feel confident making street pictures because people are going to be looking at me. This is one of those, and you do this to quite often actually to a very good effect. That you're not afraid to photograph people walking away from you. Just because they have their back turned doesn't mean that they're not interesting characters.
Absolutely. I mean, the subject just has to be that much more interesting, actually, because you don't have the emotion of the facial expression. And so someone walking away, if it's a strong subject or there is an added element, like here, the wind, that his jacket just blowing in the wind. Yeah. Not only he's just a really elegant older gentleman dressed really nice, and he has this trench coat, and he's walking towards the sea on the promenade. So we have interesting architecture. We have the sea. We have a stormy sky. And then the wind catches his coat. And it's that gesture that makes that photograph interesting. So I just had that conversation with someone recently who said, there's just too many photographers who photograph people from the back, and that doesn't really count. I said, well, I disagree. I much prefer photographers photograph people from the back than being in their face with a flash. So I think it can make a really compelling, beautiful photograph. It can be very aesthetically pleasing. Again, there has to be something. I mean, somebody walking down a lonely road with an umbrella walking away can make a beautiful photograph.
Mystery.
A silhouette situation doesn't matter if they're walking towards you or away from you. So it's okay. Yes, when people start street photography, they tend to be more comfortable photographing people as they're walking away, because then they know they're not going to be caught. And so you see a lot more of that with new photographer. But in my teaching, I said, yeah, it's totally fine. But keep in mind that there has to be something super interesting, more interesting about the subject if they're walking away, because you do not have that emotion from the facial expression.
And my thanks, as ever, to Valérie Jardin, who returns on the Extra Mile with more thoughts about making work on the streets. Visual Stories, Part 2. Catch up with the letters and the comments that you'll be making on the show in the Extra Mile as well. And why I was in Liverpool. Because it wasn't, although it was wonderful to meet him, it wasn't initially for Mali. Now, I can't believe it's almost the end of the month. So we should have a recap of the assignment for the month with Helen Jones-Florio, who was, it was about looking in and taking a photograph of a door, and then go the other side of the door and take a picture the other way out. That was what it was. A door two ways. A diptych of pictures. So you've got one more week to get your pictures in. I've been a bit tardy putting them up this month, but they're there. They're all going to go up, don't worry. And the winner, the one that tickles our fancy, will get a famous, not so famous show flask. Probably good for the, I don't know, depends what part of the world you're in. For us right now, good for those warm drinks. Now, the roll of 12 popped up, having been absent for a while. On last week's Extra Mile, we talked about it. The roll of 12, if you're new round these ear parts, was essentially 12 questions, a sort of, it was a nod. Not sort of, it was a nod to the days of 12 exposure film, but instead of a frame or an exposure, I had a question. So it was 12 questions. Sort of, some of them were life questions, but mainly there were photographic ones. So 12 random questions, which I asked guests to choose from at the end of some of my interviews. It's a game we used to play in the Extra Mile Zoom show at the start of the month too. I'd usually ask guests to choose 3 numbers. Now, quite a while back, in responding to when we had the roll of 12 questions live on the website, Kelly Mitchell, one of our very valued Extra Milers and guardians of the Facebook group, sat down over a coffee, or 4, I think, and answered diligently each one. And I picked out 3 of your answers, Kelly, knowing that, I might well return to them at some stage, but I thought this may spark some light debate in terms of others' choices. So at the time, you answered, I'm going to choose 3. Number 5, you've just received a time machine. Which famous event would you travel to photograph? And Kelly said, I'd love to be in the room with my German from Russian families who decided to emigrate. To smell war and revolution in the air and know that it's time to go on, to get on a boat and travel across the Atlantic and get off in Halifax in a whole new country, in a whole new life. That has to be amazing to learn about, doesn't it? To realise that if these brave men and women hadn't have done so, the person I am wouldn't be. Blimey, that's a sobering thought. Question 8, you chose from 12. Who inspired you as you started your photographic adventure was question 8. Now, this could be anybody, really. I suggested a photographer or a friend, but I think there's a great long list of awes here. I think, says Kelly, I had a friend at work who suggested get a camera. I didn't really have any thought of being a photographer. At the time, I was recording cemeteries, as he suggested that if I took a photo of the headstone, it would be faster than writing everything out. So then my thought was, well, if I'm doing this, wouldn't it be nice to have some scenic photos of the cemetery? And slowly that adventure led to wanting better photos while on holidays and so on and so forth. I'm intrigued at what you were doing, recording the cemeteries. Sounds fascinating. And then 10. So the last of the 3. Where have you been or what have you done that you may not have had you not found photography? Now, I like this answer, Kelly. I like this a lot. I don't think, she said, I would have gone on the trips I've been had it not been for photography. The people I've met through photography, those that I hang out with now, shoot with, have coffee with, I would never have met them. Yeah, I know what you mean. And you're absolutely right. And it's a great one to end on, Kelly, because I think you've nailed it for a lot of people. The power of photography, you might think, would end at pressing the shutter button, but it's not. It's the great enabler, isn't it? The key to curiosity. But the best conversation starter in the world, because through this thing that we do, and walking is counted, because hikers and walkers would say the very same thing happens. Walking, and us with our cameras too, photographing, you meet just the most amazing people, don't you, from all around the world. You really do. Photographers or not, it doesn't matter. It's lovely though when we all meet, we have common ground. Like obviously, Kelly, you came on the retreat in Scotland. It's fantastic to meet like-minded people, isn't it? And well, I think that's a good point to rejoin Mali, because had I not been photographing, had I not been making a podcast about photography, then I wouldn't have met Mali. And I feel all the richer for having a new friend in my life. So let's join Mali back on the streets of Liverpool in northwest England land. We're on our way to find it's a haunted street. You know, myself and Mali, we like a good haunting story. But on our way there, we're passing, this is what, Blue Coat Gallery, is it? And, the moon's just hidden behind the clouds, but look at that. So it's a very imposing Victorian, I think, building, possibly before, maybe. Georgian? Anyway, the moon is just behind the building, but it's gone behind the clouds now. But when I was looking up at the moon, I saw a liver bird.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. But do you know what's different about this? Let me just get a picture.
Oh, go on.
Because I've read about this. I'm going to get a picture of the liver bird first of all. Okay, I've got the liver bird, which is sort of vignetted by the trees above it. Again, it's going to be a real denoise AI moment within Lightroom. But look at the liver bird. So there's something about this liver bird that's different to the other liver birds that we've been looking at.
It's got something in its mouth. It's not that.
No, it's not that. It might do, but that's not it.
Oh, well, now you've got me here. Now I don't
It's
know.
like that quiz show where they say, you're close, but that's not it.
Got 2 legs.
Nope, they all have 2 legs, I think.
Do you know what? I'm not sure.
Look at the direction it's pointing.
Oh, it's pointing to the coast.
No, it's pointing right. When most of the liver birds point left.
Well, I never.
Yeah.
I've just been schooled. Mic drop from Neil. Well, I never.
Only because I read that it's unusual. And yeah, I suppose it is pointing towards the coast, but I don't think that's the reason. There are very few, and I think there's only a handful. If not, there's a possibility, but I'm sure I'm wrong.
We're in Liverpool. Guy who made him, he was probably NIST.
But this could be the only one, I don't know. But to see a liver bird that's pointing right is very unusual.
Wow.
They all point left.
Look at that autumn glow behind it, though.
I know.
And it's gold. a golden liver.
Well, that's what I said. It's like that. It's vignetted by these autumnal leaves.
Oh, you did? Yes. Sorry. Very well put. Poetic, Neil. Very poetic. It's beautiful.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Right. How far are we from this?
The Bomb Church.
Not the Bomb. Well, we're going to the Bomb to
St.
Church.
Luke's, was it?
St. Luke's, right. But we're also going up a street called
Ball Street.
Right.
Where people have reported there was a BBC, one of those horror, spooky guy talk things, ghost story programmes. Our good friend of the show, Lynn Fraser, mentioned it to us, where there's been people reported time travelling, where they've been walking up Ball Street, and one fella said he walked into a shop and it was all laid out like a 1950s decor.
So hang on a minute. He was walking up the street in 2022 or 3 or
was it
not 4
ago?
2021, 22, 23, and then he turned into a shop and went back in time.
Yes, and there was a lady in there who saw the same vision as him, so they both collectively saw the place change into what they could only describe as people dressed in 1950s, 40s attire, and the streets and everything about it was all in the 1940s, 50s.
Oh, so they turned round, looked out the door, and they saw the 19... Is this the street here? So this is it. We found it.
We're on Ball Street.
We're on Ball Street.
Bold.
Bald.
Bold. Bold as in bambold.
All right. Oh, Bold Street. Bold Street.
Bold Street.
All right. There's a slight...
Bold.
I thought you meant bald as in...
Not bald.
Looking at my head. Bold as in be bold. Be bolder.
Be brave.
Be brave, yeah, okay. And this is...
So
these days it's full up with fun pubs and
food establishments.
Food establishments, yeah, pizza places. But once upon a time then, so this is supposed to be one of the most haunted streets.
Well, no. It's been reported about this time travel, this people seeing things in the wrong place and time. Like they've jumped through time. You know what it's like.
Yeah.
But I think it's fascinating because it is a very, very old part of Liverpool. A very robust and busy area. A gentleman I've been looking into, Jeff Young, who's a part of a secret project that shall not be named. He's got his own book called Ghost Town.
Yeah.
Which is following the footsteps of the past. And Ball Street plays a prominent part in that book of his. So I'm looking forward to reading that, actually.
Yeah. I think the concept of time travel as you look into a shop and finding a different time and place would be fascinating, wouldn't it?
Well, imagine now just getting a flash through the past, and instead of that lady holding a banner up saying one shot, she's like, come in here and enjoy the delights of whatever,
I don't know where your mind is.
It's a very different world.
Yeah.
If you think about the 1800s and then from there to say the 1940s, merchants and commerce in Liverpool was huge. It was one of the biggest thriving cities in the world. Very Neapolitan, people from all over.
Yeah. Don't you mean cosmopolitan?
Neapolitan. Is that ice cream?
It's an ice cream, isn't it? Come on one of Mali's guided tours.
God, Neapolitan.
While Mali chooses his 2 scoop flavours, a little Liverpool history about the liver birds facing left and right. And before that, you might be thinking, Liverpool and liverbird. Surely it should be Liverpool or liverbird. Park that for a moment. Let's go back to the birds on the liver building. If you look closely or have a 200mm lens or more, you will see that each liver bird is carrying something in its beak. It looks like a small twig or branch of a tree. It's got 4 leaves. In most descriptions, this is identified as a piece of larva or seaweed. The name larva is a pun on the name Liverpool. Larva bird, coming from Liverpool, was probably conveniently changed to liver bird to reflect their bond. As for pointing left and right, most symbols have the bird pointing left. It's quite rare to find right-pointing ones, and some consider it unlucky. Karl Bernhard Bartels, a native of Germany who trained as a woodcarver and then came across to England, he won a competition to design the liver birds. And though he's not greatly celebrated for it, I thought you should know the name. Anyway, we're about to head into a part of the city that has things that bump in the night. And I don't mean the Cavern Club of a Saturday.
So it's at the top of Bold Street.
Yeah.
There is a church, and this is the bombed out church. Now, initially, when you approach it from Bold Street, it doesn't look bombed out at all. The facade, the building itself, looks incredibly, well, it looks in one piece and sound until you get a little bit closer. Then you notice there's kind of like a portcullis on the front instead of a big set of big oak doors. And then you look at the window, and there is no window above the doors. There's nothing behind these walls, is there?
This is the fascinating bit, just to get into it. From this front facade, the whole centre of the church is completely cavernous and emptied. It's grass, and there's only the walls around it, the perimeter that's left standing after a Second World War bomb blew the guts out of this place. But what fascinated me when I come here, and there's only 7 or 8 pieces of glass, stained glass, that remain, and one of them is a tiny, tiny little diamond-shaped shard of glass in the top of this window here to the right that has a liver bird on it.
And that's the only bit of surviving glass
that's got.
Did they put it back there, or was it?
I asked this. Well, obviously for tourism, maybe they did, or maybe I don't know. But the story has it, and it is the original piece of glass. You can clearly see it, and it's got this small liver bird on. And I got so animated because a city that's been through so much trouble and turmoil, whether it be through governments, whether it be through war. And the symbol of hope, the liver bird, is a real symbol to this place.
Yeah.
They never give up hope. People always fight and struggle on in all adversity. No money, no nothing. Look at the Beatles, the greatest band that's ever existed for me on the planet came from this city. And it shows you from nothing, from little acorns, great trees grow.
I always think of the... can we go up the steps?
Yeah.
Can you see into the church at all at any point here?
No.
So there is it is literally a shell in the middle. Well, it was literally a shell, but it's a shell inside. But the walls around it. Hang on, Mali, let me go around this way. Yeah, the church itself is complete, isn't it?
Yeah, the outer perimeter.
Yeah.
Is still standing. The outer perimeter is intact. There's parts of it at the top that's tumbled and come down, but if you look closer you can just see that one little shard of glass that has the liver bird on it.
I always think I know you're not into your football, are you, necessarily?
No.
But Liverpool Football Club with You'll Never Walk Alone, probably one of the finest, if not the finest football anthems ever.
Well, it would be wrong not to mention Liverpool's very proud association with football, originally named Everton FC and Athletic Grounds Limited, Everton Athletic for short. The club became Liverpool FC in March 1892. Now, Liverpool is one of the most widely supported clubs in the world. It's got long-standing rivalries with teams like Manchester United and, of course, just across the way, Everton. Under management by Bill Shankly, in 1964, the team changed from red shirts and white shorts to the famous all-red home strip that has been used ever since. And the club's anthem is You'll Never Walk Alone. It's an anthem that, well, I would imagine most football fans are deeply envious of. Because it's just the best. If you've ever been on the terraces when it's being sung, well, that can bring a grown man to absolute tears. But there is, as I suggested, another team in Liverpool called Everton. And in riding some cabs across town a few times earlier on this week, every single cabbie, and I mean every single one, was a blue or a toffee. Everton's nickname is the Toffees, or sometimes the Toffee Men. And it comes from 2 toffee shops. See? Does exactly what it says on the tin, really. They were located very close to where the club was founded. Both the Ye Ancient Everton Toffee House and Old Mother Noblet's Toffee Shop claim to have started off the nickname. But most believe Ye Ancient Everton Toffee House is the one, owned by Old Ma Bushell, Strange fact, but one I think you should know about Old Mar Bushel, is that if you stay at the Radisson Red Hotel right next to Lime Street Station, as I did, if you want to call an Uber, you might think it'll come direct to the front door, but actually it goes to Old Mar Bushel's bar around the corner. Useful local info, I think. And that's where we leave Liverpool, although you and I will return there. I feel this show has been our recce, really, in many ways. But as we weave our way back into the city to find Mali's all-you-can-eat buffet joint, we pass up and along Matthew Street, specifically looking for number 10. Not the one in Downing Street, no, one that's far more musical.
Well, that's it for our walk around Liverpool. We found some liver birds, as we said we would. And we've done some street photography in the dark, as we said we would, and we've learned a bit of history about the place, although actually you could probably walk around here and never touch the surface within, or the edges rather, within probably 6, 7, 8 hour programme. And I'm even watching Mali dance as we go past the pubs and clubs. So come on then, we're going to end, actually, seems a good place to end, doesn't it, at fellow street photographer out there?
Yeah.
Seems a good place to end here, because this is, as you can hear, quite a vibey part of the city. I bet you at the weekend this is alive. Hey?
Bouncing. Oh,
Yeah.
aye.
So we're going to end at the world famous Cavern Club, which is thanks so much being invited in. The world famous Cavern Club, which is I can't hear myself talk.
This is my
This is probably a good place to end a podcast, but we've had a lot of fun walking through Liverpool and must get out to do more of these sorts of walks.
Yes.
Because they are fun.
Yeah.
So come on then, where's the Cavern Club?
About another 50 yards on the left. And I'm done in. But there's memorabilia all around us, and music's flowing through the streets. And it's just wonderful to be at this time of night.
Well, I'll turn it off as we go into the Cavern Club, because they probably won't want us to record in there. But here we go, on the left, the world famous Cavern Club of Liverpool. Thanks, Mali.
You're welcome. See there.
And my thanks to Mali. A lot of fun going to somebody's town to walk with them. And though Mali, no, he's not officially a Liverpudlian, he's not a Scouser. It is his place of 9 to 5, and it was wonderful to trace the steps that he makes every day when he's in the city working. So my thanks, Mali, for being the Photowalk in many respects this week. And that's it for the show for this week. If you can't wait until next Friday and you want to walk a little further together, then the Extra Mile edition will be waiting for you. It's going to be published a little bit later on, just by a few hours. Lunchtime Friday is my expectation, or if you're listening to this in a couple of days, that won't make any difference at all. It'll already be there. The Extra Mile is part of our private Patreon channel, where our wonderful community of supporters, our walkers, our photographers, who want to help keep this podcast here week after week, make a generous monthly or annual contribution. This week, we have letters and more from Valerie, a little bit more about that trip to Liverpool as well. Now, our PS to the show is to come. But before that, we need a play-out song just to make some final frames to, or think about what's been said today. And this is a cracking tune. Very, very different to the usual, and the production at first was like I was listening to a transistor radio that had been rained on or held underwater. I wanted to give this thing a darn good shake, but after listening to the song a few times, I thought this reminded me of my time with Mali, my good new friend Mali. It's got some character, this song. It's like the soundtrack of the night spent making pictures in the dark, laughing and having a giggle with our cameras. And as another helicopter, there's lots of them in the air today. Where are you all going to? And there's a little Easter egg in this song, or maybe two actually, which make it perfect for a day trip to Liverpool. This is Juan.
Far away from you is where I wanna be. Got some plans, make this money, then I'm on my way. I've been working hard to be a better man, but this noise in my head makes me wanna say, not today, yeah, 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 yeah. Not today, yeah, 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 yeah. I know you're feeling all alone these days. Sip from the bottle in a smoky haze. Pour me some Pinot, let's listen to the Beatles. Flying so high like Lucy in the sky. Not today, yeah, 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 yeah. 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 So lost, but I'm feeling okay. The same images, frame by frame. Still trying to find my own way, yeah. Not today, yeah, yeah, yeah. So lost, but I'm feeling okay. The same images, frame by frame. Still trying to find my own way, yeah. Not today, yeah, yeah, yeah. So lost, but I'm feeling okay. These same images, frame by frame. Still trying to find my own way, yeah. Not today, yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's Juan, and a song called Not Today. Did you hear the Easter eggs? Of course we did, Neil. Of course we did. Cracking song to end with today. I had a few conversations actually the last week with a few people who know that a poll is coming up, a very important poll. We shape the show with the polls that we have, and we have them, well, not always annually, some of them take a longer gap, but we've got another one coming up, which is a very important one. And the suggestion was, why don't you drop the song? What does it do? So I thought I'd explain it quickly, although the poll may well make a bit of a decision for us. The song, the play-out song, it's designed just to bookend the show. And I know some people do just fast forward through it. It do take a while to try and choose them carefully, but that's okay. But it's a bookend, really. It's this sort of, yeah. I suppose the podcast, as really right at the start suggested, the podcast is supposed to be different. I know we're all searching for different. It's a bit of a cliche, isn't it? I want to be different. Let's do something different. Can you do something different? Can you be original? It's difficult to be original in a world that's had so much original. But yeah, that's what the play-out song is about, really. And I wish I could choose the more commercially known songs, but the archaic copyright laws of podcast sphere declare that I can't. But I enjoyed that, a cracking song to end the show with. Just a few closing thoughts before my PS. My sincere thank yous if you're about to become an extra miler. My promise to you is to keep building this community of kindness. A safe place, I know I say it every week, but I really mean it, to share our thoughts. I think today's letters have certainly shown that it is a safe place. I like to feel it's somewhere to come to talk about our mental health, our photography, our walking. I really do. So I'll continue to build that community of kindness, photographing, walking and sharing. And as I say each week as well, there's a way to share. That's the most powerful thing you can do to help us on this podcast. It's wonderful if you're an extra miler. And equally, though, if you can help share the show by contacting a friend and saying, "Oi, I've heard this," or maybe putting it in a Facebook group. That's really powerful. And you can share using the buttons on the show page for the episode number 409 today. You can share it easily with those buttons as well. My thank you to Neil Ford, who looks after IT. Thank goodness somebody does. Andrea Gilpin, who's across Instagram. Kelly Mitchell and Emily Renier, who look after our Facebook members. Right, a postscript for today. And I didn't really have to think too hard when it came to what sort of thing we should choose for a postscript, for a PS, the final message for the show. It's one from John Lennon. It's a thought, a quote from John Lennon, a thought about making art and being an artist. My role in society, said John, or any artist's or poet's role, is to try and express what we all feel. Not to tell people how to feel. Not as a preacher, not as a leader, but as a reflection of us all.
The Photowalk is a Loading Zone production.